So it's nice to meet you all. Thank you for coming. My name is Guillaume Debaucher. I will introduce myself a little bit later in the presentation. So just so I have an idea of the audience here. So by show of hands, who is a low-hour cadet or basically an ab initio with 0 hours or just a few hours of a PPL? Okay, so we have roughly 40% of the room. And who is a parent? Okay, so we have removed those. That's 25% of the room is a parent. Who already has a license and is applying for a job? Okay, so we've got 2. Okay, so that's a minority. Okay, very good, very good. Good. So what we're going to talk about today is preparing for airline selections, which is something that all of you who are aspiring will have to do at some point in your career. You will have to do it if you are a cadet, like most of you are low-hour or 0-hour pilot. You will have to do it as you approach a flight school to convince them that you are good enough, that they should trust you. And if there's an airline backing this flight school, you will have to convince them as well. So it's very important that you invest in this, in convincing them in preparing for your airline selection, especially for cadets. So the majority of you, because the fall rate on cadet programs is very high because of the amount of applicants. A huge amount of applicants for very few seats. Some of the filtering is done already at the application stage. Say that you do not meet the requirements, that's already done. Say that you don't write a proper CV and cover letter, that will also hurt your chances. They might not want to see you. And then after that, you're going to have to convince them during a proper selection. Now, selections don't stop the time you pass your first one. You will be subject to selections your whole career. So first of all, if you joined an airline and you wanted to switch airlines for a better airline, or an airline in your home country, or for whatever reason that is, you're going to have to go through selection again. But say that you enter a major airlines such as British Airways. You may think, well, selections, you don't need to go through another selection. Well, I was a British Airways pilot, pardon me. And I decided to join Emirates, so I had to go through another set of selections. And even if I had stayed at BA, I might have wanted to do something else, such as become an instructor, become a recruiter, be part of the safety team, become part of the chief pilot's office. There again, you have to go through selections. So your career path, when you know how to pass a selection, is very different from you failing 50% of your selections. Okay, it looks very different towards the end. And for some people who would fail at the beginning, their career could not take off at all, or they could do what I call bouncing down the bottom, which is basically they end up getting a job, but it's not the greatest job. And maybe because it's not the greatest job, the airline's not all that stable. At some point, it goes bankrupt, and they end up again in this terrible circle. So we don't want that. We want to have the skills that are required in order to succeed. And this is what I'm going to talk to you about today. It's a real skill set. Maybe it's not as important as flying the plane, but it's a real skill set that is very important for a pilot to have. Okay. So a little bit about myself. So my name is Guillaume Debaucher. I'm French. I'm actually the first French pilot with a JAR license, so the ancestor of EASA, to have joined British Airways. So that was in 2005 when I joined BA. So I was very, very proud. And I stayed with them for 7 years. So I was a co-pilot on the 320. Then I did 2 years on the 777. Which was wonderful, and I decided to move to Emirates for many reasons. I wanted to be a captain a bit quicker. I didn't join BA when I was 20. Okay, I joined when I was 32. So I thought I don't want to wait until I'm 50 for my upgrade, and I went to Emirates. I became a captain there, so I was a 777 captain for Emirates. Altogether, I stayed 9 years, and out of these 9 years, I was a recruiter for quite a long time over there. So I was part of the recruitment team, and when I entered the recruitment team, I went like, oh my God. Why aren't they telling this to all the youngsters who are applying and the other pilots? Why is there absolutely no explanation about what's actually going on behind the curtain? Sure, there are some websites that can help you with some specific training to prepare for psychometrics. You can go and prepare for the sim exercise. You can gather information on the internet, left and right, and in some forums. But to be properly prepared, no one does that. So when COVID happened, I thought, I've got some time on my hands now, and I'm going to create a program that's going to help youngsters and more experienced pilots to succeed at airline selections. So our program now is a bit more than 2.5 years old. And we have lots of ATOs that take our program. We sell it directly on the internet as well. We work with a famous aircraft manufacturer, which I'm not allowed to cite, but I'm pretty sure you can imagine who it is. And we are involved in very many exciting projects at the moment because many, many more ATOs are realizing that they cannot teach what we teach. Basically, they end up procuring a license to a pilot, but the airline expects much more than that. And the APS-MCC only partly bridges that gap. The 100 KSA partly bridges that gap. At the end of the day, there are not that many real airline pilots inside an ATO. In an ATO, and they mean well. In an ATO, there are other skills that are being taught. But the recruiter in an airline flies a plane one day, recruits the next day. They expect you to understand the job already. Okay, so this is what we are here to bridge that gap, so to say. And the results are very, very good. They are, in fact, stunning in some cases for some airlines, for most airlines. And I will detail this in a second. And then I'll teach you a few winning strategies to put you on the right path. Okay? So, enough about me. The airline selection process itself, it's a chain. Okay, it's a chain with links, like most chains. And it's important to understand that you need to be good or better across the whole chain. If you're below an expected level at one link of the chain, you will fail. Okay? So this chain is made of preparation. So preparation involves, for instance, your CV and cover letter, but also some of your research about the target airline. For non-English speaking natives, it's also your English level. The number one reason why people fail airline selections is actually English proficiency. Not in this country, but in most other countries. Then you need to be good at psychometrics, which is typically not just math and physics. Most of you know what it is. It's hand-eye coordination, orientation, tests that you do online about little things that move around and boxes that buttons you've got to press in the right sequence. Number series, verbal reasoning. So psychometrics can be easily practiced. Then there's interviews, group interviews, sometimes technical interviews, which is very rare, and human resource interviews, so which are often called the final interview. Sometimes there are two. Sometimes there's one with psychologist, one with the pilot team, or pilot and human resource professional. And then finally, there is the sim exercise. Not all airlines have sim exercises. The noticeable exception to this is Air France. And of course, for cadets, usually there is no sim exercise. How could you ask someone to fly in a sim if they've not flown a plane before? Again, there are exceptions to this. Sometimes they do put cadets in or low-hour or zero-hour pilots on a plane just to see how it feels. They give them basic tuition and they get them in the sim. So that's the chain. That's the process. And today we're going to talk about... So preparation is needed at all stages. This I mentioned already, of course, and you need to prepare a lot more than you think. The number one mistake people make is that they underestimate how much work is required. Because typically, especially for what I call professionals, those who already have a license, they go like, oh my God, I've studied for 2.5 years. I've got my CPL, my instrument rating, my MCC. Now it's just about the interview. Well, yeah, but you actually have to work a lot for your interview, a lot more than you think. So today, we're going to talk about interviews. So I'm going to give you a few recruitment facts that I gave you a few already. I'm going to give you a few more. And then we're going to talk about the 3 main failure areas where people set themselves up for failure already. And then we're going to talk about the main failure contributors. So you get an idea of how things could go wrong, okay, without you even anticipating it. But then, of course, we're going to be positive today as well. So I'm going to talk to you about the recruiter, what they actually do. And I'm going to give you 5 winning strategies, okay, that are going to pay off immediately. And then I'm going to tell you how we can help, because we just launched a British Airways course, actually. And we're going to talk to you about that, but also about our main course, which is the Advanced Interview course, which I think all aspiring pilots should have in order to bridge that gap between the ATO and the airline and be comfortable at the interview. All right. And then, of course, there'll be time for some questions. Good. So a few stats. On average, only 25% of applicants pass any given airline selection. Now that it is not an official statistic, there is no official statistic, but it is understood between professionals that that is the pass rate. Depending on the time of the market cycle, it could be higher, it could be lower. If airlines are desperate, they will tend to bring this figure up. And this is true of what I call, again, professionals. People who already have a license, who already are qualified and are looking to join an airline. For cadets, it is a lot less, a lot less. For cadets, it's less than 10% because the number of applicants is so much more significant because there is not the filter of the license, right? So I think British Airways received, I think they mentioned 20,000 applications. I think Aer Lingus had 4,000 or 5,000 for just a few hundred seats, sometimes less than 100 seats. Okay, so it gives you an idea of the fall rate. Now, I focus on the ones that actually get invited to an interview, and even there, it's only 10% for cadets, okay, and 25% for pros. We typically multiply this by 3, which is not surprising when you think that if you prepare for something, you tend to be better than if you don't prepare for something, right? Imagine if you went to do your GCSEs or your A levels and you didn't go through high school, it would be harder. Yeah. So there are 3 categories of candidates. 25% of candidates, and again, this is empiric. This is my experience. And there's something I wanted to say as well on the previous slide is. The French DGAC, so the equivalent of the CAA, they have this official statistic. 50% of candidates that have an ATPL do not renew after 3 years. This is a very worrying statistic. And this means that typically they give up. So what happens is if you fail one selection, you will bounce back. You'll go, where did I go wrong? And the problem is ethics and recruitment don't often meet, meaning that you will fail, but they won't tell you why at most airlines. And then you don't know why you fail. You have to imagine why you fail, understand why you fail. And if you don't know what the recruiter is trying to achieve, it's difficult to know why. But you'll bounce back. You'll go, okay, I'll try a second time. I think I know I've done it wrong. And if you fail a second time, now the doubt starts to inhabit you, but also everybody else around you. It's a terrible, terrible feeling. And I know because I failed my very first selection before I made BA. It's a terrible feeling that also sets you back a few months or a few years. It has a financial implication. It's a terrible feeling. So, and then people will tell you about pilot shortage. So you have this terrible discrepancy between 50% of applicants not renewing their licenses, in France at least, and pilot shortage. Ever since I was a pilot, I heard about pilot shortage. And ever since I was a pilot, I heard about people not finding jobs. So the reality is, the solution is preparing people better to pass their selections. This is my credo. This is what I do now. Good. So like we said, 25% will always pass, almost always pass. Why? First of all, they're intelligent, they're smart, so they've got what it takes. But also they naturally understand how to present themselves. They naturally, like I often say, they naturally put their good foot forward. They have prepared, they've put a lot of work in, and they will pass. Then you have the other 50%. These 50% in the middle then, they will pass on a good day. If they are asked the right questions, if planets align, if the recruiter feels that they already like this person at the moment they enter the room, if it's a heavy recruitment phase. But these 50%, they can also fall through the trap. And they enter the room not really knowing what's going to happen, and anything could go wrong at any time. These 50% are the ones we work on the most, and we can convert just about every one of them. Don't tell me that a pilot who's got a license, out of all the pilots who have a license, only 25% of them are fit enough to fly a plane. Absolutely not. There's fewer than 10% have a clinical issue. Fewer than 10, very few. And when I mean clinical, I'm not saying that it's clinical beyond repair, but something that can be seen on a personality questionnaire that will mean that 10% of these pilots, they need to work on themselves very heavily on their personality in order to make a flight. It's very rare. So don't tell me that out of all the ones the ATOs will train, only 25% are good enough. What I'm saying is 25% only know how to present themselves. Okay, so we're going to work on these 50% in the middle and produce results. Then there are, of course, the other 25% that will almost always struggle for one reason or another. These ones, some of them will pass if they have connections, if the time's right, if they get a bit lucky. Okay, but what we want to do is we want to eliminate luck from this equation. All right. Good. Now, recruitment is tough. I mentioned this to you before, and ask any pilot who's been through recruitment, and they'll tell you how tough it is and how it felt. The expectation level is higher than most expect, meaning that people don't expect it to be that tough. Only when they get in front of the recruitment building that day and their hands get moist, and I know because mine did, and they look to the sky and go, God help me, because it's daunting. It really is. Like I said, the emotional pain of failure is very high, something I want to avoid for all of you. And yes, recruitment ethics don't aim at protecting the pilot. Very few airlines will actually debrief a pilot on why they failed. Very, very few. Air France is an exception, but most airlines don't. BA don't, although BA is a great employer. They've got so many good qualities, but some will tell you it's for legal reasons. Some will tell you it's because they don't have the resources to. Whichever way, to me, that's a shame, because most pilots invest so much energy into this selection, into this career. Most of us will have dreamt of entering a flight deck since we were kids. And now to be said no, without a reason, it's tough. Okay, but you got to be ready for that. You got to be resilient, which is one of the qualities that we're looking for, and ready for this. But the best thing would be to not fail, of course. Or if you did, to at least understand, first of all, life's not fair, but also to understand that what happened. And if you know what the recruiter's doing, you may know, okay, I made a mistake there. I know where it is. Okay, I got it. At least that's fine. Okay, so the main failure areas, we talked about English proficiency. It doesn't apply too much in the UK. I think most of you will be very good in English. So that's fine. Let's get this one out of the way. Lack of preparation. We mentioned this already. And the third one is a poor understanding of what the recruiter is actually looking for. Most candidates are left with guessing what the recruiter is trying to do. And so many of them, when they come to us, usually they failed once, so some of them don't, but some of them come when they failed once and they go like, very often I hear this, I don't know what they were on about. They were beating around the bush. I had no idea what they were asking for, and I couldn't provide them with what they wanted. I could tell. I didn't know what it was. Okay? So this is something we can really work on. All right. So now these were the 3 main areas. Now I've got 5 contributors. A lack of understanding of the job itself and of its challenges. If I ask you now, tell me what makes a good pilot, and can give you 10 seconds to pause and see if you can give me a structured answer. Okay, so if you can't, it means you don't know the job well enough yet. Okay, I'll tell you what a good pilot is. A good pilot is a pilot who is motivated, has initiative, commitment to achieve, is a good communicator, knows how to solve problems, and likes to find solutions, is good at workload management, managing his workload and managing under stress. He's someone who's a good team player as well as a good leader. Depending on the case, he can vary between one and the other. He's able to work according to standard operating procedures, but also get out of them when they're no longer safe. And he's intellectually honest. Okay? This is a type of structured answer you need to get out. And if before you just had a mere idea, but you didn't really know, then you've not worked enough yet. All right? Also, challenges is a word that comes often at interviews. The one question that BA will ask, for instance, is, what do you think are the challenges that we are facing at the moment as an airline? So you need to have researched your airline. And then they might ask you, what challenges do you think you're going to face as a pilot with our airline? Okay, so all of these questions you need to have researched and thought through. For instance, you need to understand that today most pilots are very tired. Fatigue is an issue across the whole pilot population, for instance. Okay, so you need to say, okay, well, just like for all the pilots I know, fatigue is an issue. So my plan is I'm going to move close to Heathrow, and I plan to have a really healthy life because it's important to have this balance. When I'll be at the outstation, sure, I'll go out a bit, but then I'll make sure that I remain healthy. I'll go to the gym, I'll go for a walk. I'll make sure that I mitigate this fatigue, but I know it's there. For instance, okay? There are many other challenges. of course, of this job. Often people think, oh, this job's hard because you've got 450 people at the back. No, this job is hard for so many other reasons. You know, you're also part of the plane. When you go out and fly, you have what we call a linked destiny. Everybody's destiny is linked, and yours included, right? It's a hard job because you've got to keep up with so much information all the time. Lots of changes, constant changes, okay? And because threats are everywhere, on the ground in particular. Pre-flight, no pre-flight is the same. There's always things that don't come in sequence that you've got to manage. That's what's tough, and interesting too, all right? Good, so surely understanding the job better would help at the interview, right? And you see already how that will make a difference in persuading the recruiter that you're already one step ahead and that they should trust you. So then the lack of understanding of the airline's reality and its challenges, you have to be able to explain the airline's strategy and its challenges. A long and poorly researched cover letter, I'll give you a hint. If it's more than 400 words, it's too long. And it should be well researched. It should be airline specific. It shouldn't look like a cut and paste. And it should have some of the competencies I told you about what makes a good pilot. You should already project yourself as a pilot and explain that you've got the competencies they're looking for. For this, you need to know which ones they are. And write a little sentence that's specific to you that will convince them that you've got some of what they are looking for, some of what's on their checklist, so they will want to know a bit more about you and they'll invite you. The cover letter is often underestimated, and in fact, not only could it cost you not being able to put your foot in the door and not being invited, it could also cost you at the interview, because at most airlines, we've got it in front of us. And the first thing I'll do when I recruit is ask people to explain why they wrote this. In some cases, they will have written it a year ago and they don't remember. If, by the way, you are not asked to send a letter, but you're just asked to fill something into a computer mask, in a computer, in a browser, then please make a screenshot of it and keep it. Remember what you wrote. All of this will be held against you, but the idea is that it's held in your favor instead. Okay? If you write a strong letter, it will work with you at the interview. Okay? So, for instance, I'll go, yeah, so you say that we are the best airline in the world in this. Well, I was going to say something about Air France, but basically, there's some things that you don't want to mention if they are not completely researched. You want to mention something that's only that is properly researched. Okay? Volunteering shortcomings. That's one of the biggest mistakes that we see. Most candidates are good people, honest, nice, and kind. And they will want to make themselves, they will want to portray themselves as being sort of an open book ready for the exercise. So they will volunteer lots of mistakes that have nothing to do in an interview room. They will start by saying, for instance, all the things that they failed in their lives, just to appear honest. And what will happen is that the recruiter will go, yeah, this one scores 5. 5 is the highest grade you get. In aviation, we score from 1 to 5. Scores 5 in honesty. Unfortunately, the risk is too high. They gave us too much negative that we cannot hire them now. You have candidates that will tell, well, I went to high school and it took an extra year. You know, it was kind of tough. And then I realized I wasn't good in maths. And so I went for the Air Force and there I failed as well. Then I tried the Navy and that wasn't good either. And now I'm in front of you because I'm really keen. Compared to, ever since I was a child, I always wanted to be a pilot. I did everything I could. I went through high school and here I am. See how it feels? Okay, and so the idea is that you're going to, of course, they might ask you, tell us about a mistake you made. Tell us about something that didn't go right in your life. You'll have prepared this in a way that is articulate. In a way, say, well, this didn't go well, or I made a mistake the other day, because we all make mistakes. And I learned from it. And now this is the countermeasure I have, that I'm not going to make this mistake again. See how positive that is? Right. So. And then the last thing is people may have a lack of self-knowledge. They don't really know who they are. for some people, this is a question that you will ask yourself until the end of your life. But when it comes to a professional circumstance, you want to know how, what the recruiter will have when they do the personality questionnaire on you. So once you know this, you know how you are compared to the rest of the population, and you can position yourself adequately to answer the most difficult interview questions. But if you don't know, if you don't have self-knowledge, it's kind of difficult to position yourself. When you do have this self-knowledge, you appear suddenly very mature. Yes, I know that I am a bit like this, but I can also be very different depending on the circumstances. I can go the other way completely, in fact, for a set amount of time to resolve a situation. Which means I accept where I am, I know where I am, that's already half the battle won for the recruiter. And let me give you an example where something happened and I had to go the other way. And this is what the recruiter wants. He wants someone who is flexible around the whole spectrum of attitudes that are expected for a pilot to have and not stuck in one area. When you have this self-knowledge, and we teach this in our courses, you then appear very articulate to the recruiter. You now appear to be subtle and very, very convincing. Okay? We'll get into that in a second. Actually now. So let's meet the recruiter now. So there are 3 types of interviews. You have the advanced interview, which is the king of interviews. This is the interview that is led by airlines that are fairly complex, that have a full set of staff in their recruitment and HR department, people who are trained specifically for recruitment, and they have in-house aviation psychologists that are part of the recruitment team. You know it's an advanced interview when there is a personality questionnaire, and when the personality questionnaire is asked before the interview. Because sometimes the personality questionnaire is dispensed after the interview for EASA regulations, or for CAA regulations, I guess. Basically, the TD12 questionnaire is, after the German wings, is asked after. It's a requirement that you meet it. So if you do it after the interview, obviously it's not used during the interview. Okay? This advanced interview is very different to all the other interviews because now you have skilled recruiters in the recruitment team. They will always ask questions in the past. Tell me a time when. Then you know it's an advanced interview. Because when they ask for examples in the past, they are gathering evidence, real things that really happened, that they can consider evidence, and they can put it in the file, and they know that you behave like this in a recent past, then they can anticipate they will behave the same in the near future. Okay? Then you have the classic interview, which is the toughest. Smaller airlines do this. Typically, these are non-recruitment trained staff, sometimes senior staff, chief pilots, who think they can recruit because they've been training in the sim for years, but in fact, they don't really know how to go about it, and they make recruitment mistakes. Even if they're well-intentioned, they will make recruitment mistakes, because what will they do? They will try and like the candidate. If I have a good feel, then surely the person's good. Well, then they end up recruiting people who are just like themselves. And we're not at work to make friends. We're not at work to be with people who are like us. We're at work to do a job and to be friendly at work. It's very different. Okay? So this is tough. So what we'll do for the classic interview is we're going to use our examples and try and impress on the classic interview recruiter the reality of the things we've done. We're trying to use the tools of the advanced interview in the classic. And then there's a hybrid, which is, so I will say it's a low-cost Irish airline. For legal reasons, I'm being very careful with what I say. So they have a hybrid interview. It's a very good interview. I hope it's an airline calling. This is a question that will put you in the future, but in scenarios that are very well built to see how you would react with the knowledge that you have. Okay, so it's a different type of interview. But again, when you learn to pass an advanced interview, you will know how to deal with a hybrid. Anyway, so let's talk about the advanced recruiter of the advanced recruiter, so to say, the professional recruiter. These are the 9 competencies that are called the ICAO competencies. All pilots are evaluated along these competencies that are insufficient for recruitment, but important nevertheless. Knowledge at the bottom, handling the plane, working with the autopilot, application of procedures, managing your workload, situational awareness, and the king of competencies, which is problem-solving, decision-making. This is the captain's competency, so to say, right? Of course, the co-pilot has to know all of this as well, but this is where the captain will make the difference at the top. Along the side, leadership and teamwork underpin this pyramid, and communication. Communication is probably the most important, because 70% of accidents and incidents are human factors related, and out of these, another 70% are linked to poor communication. Not saying what we see properly, the other pilot not understanding, not communicating well with the machine, miscommunication with ATC. A lot of accidents stem from this. Leadership and teamwork, as you see, are one competency. We don't want people who can only follow. We want people who can lead if required. If your captain is having a bad day, you're here to save that day as a co-pilot. You are in the cockpit, not in a business class seat, right? You're in the cockpit also to look after your captain in a way, right? It's very important they will want to see this in a young person. Say that you get your typewriting and you're on the line when you're 22, your captain could make a string of bad decisions. You may have to take over. It could happen. Okay, it almost happened to me twice. And I know people who it's happened to. At some point, you need to doubt whether that person is becoming incapacitated or not, right? So these things you have to understand. And the recruiter will want to see in a young person this capacity, that they could do it on the day. And we teach how to go about it gradually so that it's part of you as a young pilot, and that you can explain this at the interview. Okay, so at the interview, they are going to focus on the top part. The bottom part will be done during psychometrics or in the sim. And so the recruiter's objective is to deal with the top part at the interview stage. Okay? But that's not enough. So there are 9 competencies. We just discussed them. And then there are also 8 recruitment competencies. Some airlines will have fewer, some airlines will have less. So I'm not gonna, I can tell you roughly what they are, but typically this is what I told you when I told you what makes a good pilot. Drive, so motivation, initiative, communication, problem-solving, decision-making, workload management, teamwork, leadership, which is basically your capacity to influence, flexibility and creativity, and intellectual honesty. You could add some more, such as resilience, humility, maturity. You can add more, but these are the ones. Whichever way it is, what's important to understand is the recruiter has a checklist. To recruit you, they have to have a tick box in each one of these boxes, and they have an hour. If after an hour they couldn't tick them, even by asking questions twice, 3 times, or in a different way, you won't be recruited. So your job is to help them. And your job is to minimize the risk perception as well. The recruiter measures risk. They are haunted by the idea that your recruitment will result in an incident or accident, and that the recruitment file will be opened again and they will be questioned. So no risk. Okay? And just to show you, all of this is documented. There's no point in you trying to read this. I'm just showing you what this is. You can take pictures if you want, but typically, that's the positive for the drive. For instance, if a person is self-driven, energetic, and proactive, they're considered to be driven. If they are passive, not fully involved, or rest on others, they're considered to not be driven. So when we are interviewing someone and we see them, either we know right away how we're going to grade them, or we look at this and we go, oh yeah, actually, it's a minus in communication. Or it's a minus in workload management. Oh yeah. Okay, so all of this has not been invented by the airline. It's years and years of research by human resource professionals that produces these sort of matrices. Okay? Good. So now you understand what the recruiter is trying to achieve. As you can see, it's quite technical, actually. And it's a bit of an eye-opener for most. So, the winning strategy number 1, like we said, is to be aware of what the recruiter is actually trying to achieve, instead of guessing what they're trying to achieve. Once you get past that level, it's so much easier. So, we said the recruiter is evaluating key competencies, but they will also use a personality questionnaire in an advanced interview, remember? So that will give them a really good idea of how you are most of the time. Knowing that, depending on how you wake up in the morning, you could vary, and that given a certain set of circumstances, you could change behavior. So they're going to qualify that with you. And if they see danger areas, for instance, someone who would be emotionally unstable or very anxious, that's an area of danger, so to say. They would try and requalify this and see, is this something we can work with, or is it just too dangerous for us? Some of them are kind of no-goes. There are not very many no-go areas. There are a few, but few clients are actually there. Some of them get quite close. Okay, so it's important that you're there, first of all, because maybe it's a wake-up call, or maybe you just need to have the right answers. You need to rethink of how you would. You just need to be aware that you're going to be asked these difficult questions. Questions that come from a personality questionnaire are always tough, because the recruiter is not going to ask questions where everything's fine. They're going to ask questions where there is a bit of a doubt. Okay? Okay, so that was meeting the recruiter and understanding what they're actually trying to achieve. The second one is studying the airline, including its present challenges. I think we explained this already. I'm not sure. Yes. So what we are going to do here is we're going to study the airline. We're going to read the annual report, their website, all the literature we can get along 4 main pillars. The first one is going to be their financials. The number one challenge for a CEO is always finance. How much money is it making? Okay. And this is where you're going to start to study your airlines very differently from one to the other. An Air France, a British Airways can be profitable, but low-cost Irish airline or Wizz Air or an EasyJet will be much more profitable. In a way, they're much better companies. So you love one for different reasons that you love the other. It doesn't mean you can't love both. But you tell them different things. You love BA because of history. You love BA because of what it represents. You love them for their diversity culture, their quality as an employer, the fleet, the expansion plans, the commitment to the environment. Okay? You love low-cost Irish airline for what it's achieved. Okay? It's very different. But once you understand this, you will see them smile in the interview room. They'll be just happy that you are able to articulate your thoughts in this way. So 4 main pillars: finance, seducing the client, seducing the employee, and the environment. Okay? So we teach this in our courses. We have a YouTube channel as well. I put a lot of videos. I put a lot of effort in doing these videos for you so that you get to understand how to work this. So in the British Airways course that is out at the moment, we produce sheets that save you time so that you know how to collect information. There's the Aer Lingus one as well. We've got many sheets for many airlines, but in the British Airways course, there are videos that goes with them as well. Okay, there's one for Wizz Air as well. In the course, in our main course, in advanced interview course, we teach you how to read an annual report. I think it's important for you to know how to go and collect your figures. And for instance, where Air France got their figures out, I think it was in February, same time as BA, the whole media went like, oh, what a great historical result. Yeah, except that they made a massive loss on the last quarter. So to me, it was a very worrying result, actually. You should be able to explain, to read this yourself, because you cannot only rely on us. You know, when they get the result out, it takes us time to do the sheets, to make a video, etc. What if your recruitment is in 2 weeks? You need to be able to understand this yourself. Okay, so we said we will study the airline. Then we need to have sound operational CRM, which is crew resource management, how we work together on the cockpit. We need to have sound CRM application knowledge. What does this mean? Well, typically, like we said, the ATOs cannot teach you airline operations easily because most of their instructors, except at MCC level, will not work at an airline. I mean, they work at the flight school. It's already an involving job. They don't work at the airline at the same time. Very few of them do. So they don't really know what's going on at the airline. So it's difficult for them to teach you expected behaviors. The thing is, like I said before, the recruiter wants to see that you've got this expected behavior already because they need it. And day in, day out, they fly apart from recruiting. They expect you to understand things that you've not been taught. It's an impossible equation. So I'll show you a few things that we teach in the course that I've learned through my career and I'm passing on to our clients. So for instance, a decision should be safe, then legal, then efficient. So what we say is safe, legal, and if possible, efficient, given the time and the circumstances available. So when you see someone, say that you've got a captain that's gradually making a decision that's you don't feel comfortable with, or they're not taking enough fuel because they're trying to be a good fuel person and stuff like that, then as a co-pilot you can say, Captain, I understand your decision is efficient. It's barely legal. In my mind, it's not safe. You've got your priorities in the wrong order. Let's make it safe. You see? You see how this works? And in a hybrid recruitment, they will ask you scenarios like this. The captain doesn't want to take enough fuel, the weather is bad, and how would you, well, you say, well, I would go about it in this way. And what would you do if they didn't react positively to this? And then for this, we have the next one, which is the intervention model. You're going to intervene gradually. If needed, you'll go all the way to the takeover directly if there's no time. But initially, you're going to ask, Captain, why don't you want to take the amount of fuel that I was thinking would be adequate? Maybe you missed something. Suggest, Captain, I suggest we actually take 2 more tons of fuel today because of the weather situation. It would be safer. And if they still dismiss you, say, Captain, I insist that we do. And if needed, so if you're on the ground when it's time to take fuel, you're not going to take over. You're just going to say, well, I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to fly like this. If this would be in the air, you could use trigger sentences such as, Captain, I'm uncomfortable. Yeah, so say you're on the approach and the captain is making a string of mistakes or a string of decisions that you don't really understand. Usually it's because they're motivated by wanting to get home fast, something to do in the evening, going on holiday tomorrow. Usually it's during those times. Or, I've had it in my career, if we get to the hotel quick enough, well, we won't be missing the rugby match. I got this one. This is the time where I almost had to take over. So, you see how this is for a passenger, it's not great. I mean, unless they want to watch a rugby match too, but, you know. You see there's a structured way to go about things. And when you've got this structured way in place, especially as a young lower cadet, wow, oh my God, you know, the recruiter will go, the risk, very little with this candidate. Okay, winning strategy number 4, knowing yourself, being self-aware and mature, which kind of go hand in hand. So, self-knowledge. If you understand the key competencies, you will be able to know how you fare with them, but getting a personality questionnaire done will go further in that process because you know where you are, and then you can anticipate difficult questions. And then you start to be pretty polished and quite ready for your interview when you get there. And then what most of our clients report, going for daunting selections, such as we've got many at Air France because we're based in France, but we've got some for all airlines. They say, oh my God, I was just happy to be there. You know, I felt good at the interview. What a difference. And some of them who failed 2 years before and they go now with this, they go like, oh, I felt good. I was just happy to show them what I could do. What a difference. So self-knowledge will show that you're mature, that you're self-aware, of course. It will enhance your ability to explain the competencies that we showed before, the CRM application, because if you start to interest yourself on your self-awareness, you start to develop concepts around CRM. You start to become literate on it. And this is a language that pilots talk all the time. We talk about this all the time. The airline talks to us about it all the time. Because remember, 70% of incidents and accidents are human factors. So it's very reassuring to the recruiter. Okay, and number 5, you'll build an experience sheet, which is all the events that happen in your life that are relevant to the interview. You will list them. And you'll choose your examples properly, and also you will back that with good interview technique, which we will teach you as well, and this will give you great answers to tough interview questions. Every time there is a question asked, you will try to relate it to an example that is well documented and that really speaks. So this is mine. It's daunting, I know. There's the 8 competencies, and then there's the questions that always come. Quick decision, complex decision, disagreement with someone, taking over or just about taking over, having to be diplomatic and use CRM, or having to work outside of known procedures. Okay, so I've got all my examples, and I put boxes, I put ticks, And where I've got lots of ticks, I go, that's a good example. I'm going to tick because if with one example I can get the recruiter to tick very many boxes, I'm going to be out of this interview room in record time, and that's what I want. Most candidates make their mistakes at the end of the exercise when they're exhausted, and the exhaustion point starts at 45 minutes. Most candidates fail between 45 and an hour. They get comfortable. The recruiter's been nice and smiling because that's how they are. And at the end of the day, they say, yeah, come on, you can tell us. This thing we were trying to discuss, you can tell us. And now, because the candidate feels they've been comfortable the whole time, they feel they can say it. And they do. And they fail. You see what I mean? There are things you're just not going to say. Because it doesn't belong in here. Right? Okay? So this is, I made one for a hypothetical client that's called Junior in the training. So Junior, he's got there's fewer things, but Junior is just 20 years old. He's worked at a burger joint. He's had he's done a summer job. He's worked as a scout. He's got things that he can say about his life. Even if you're 18 years old, you've had a disagreement with someone, you've had to make some decisions, you've had to convince someone, and certainly your parents, to take you to this day, today, for instance, right? So you can fill the sheet. It'll just look different. And then this is one that a client did, then a client who did this one, he passed, he's at Fly Dubai now. So it works well. And at the bottom, you will list your mistakes. You list your mistakes. You have to prepare your mistakes. Okay? You see, all of this, none of this is cheating. All of this is preparing. All of this is real. Good. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do. So we've got 4 main courses. Advanced interview course, which is our main course. CV and cover letter course, which is needed for everybody, but advanced interview course also, but the CV and cover letter course, really, it's important. SIM preparation course is if you go to the SIM, we teach you, all of this is only e-learning. We teach you on e-learning format, the stuff that you need to know. It's e-learning, there's an app on the iPhone, on the iPad, it's very easy to use, and all of this has a one-to-one element, especially advanced interview course, where we do your personality questionnaire, and we speak with you one-to-one, to tell you what we've seen and tell you which difficult questions you're likely to get. And then there's the English proficiency course, especially for non-English speaking natives, okay? And we've also got, so in the advanced interview course, I'm not going to detail all of them, otherwise you're all going to get bored, but typically it's important to know that there is this 16 PF questionnaire, an official personality questionnaire that we can rely on, that we debrief for you. Okay, on top of all the e-learning modules, the 13 hours of teaching, the case studies, the studying, the annual reports, the key competencies, the management models, the group interview techniques, all of this is in there, and the great answers to tough interview questions, all of this is in there. But there's the questionnaire, is what makes us really different, because we are real human resource professionals, okay? Now that we have a community, monthly sessions to Q&A sessions, and anything that you could expect from a company that's doing things properly, okay? And an iPad and OS and iPhone app as well. Now we've got this new course, the British Airways course. There's a free part to it. I invite you to go on it. So you go on the website, online.airlineselectionprogram.com. You go on the part 1 courses. The part 1 courses are free. The part 2, it's the continuation of the part 1 courses. So you've got the BA1 that's at the top, and then there is the Air France, the Wizz Air, the low-cost Irish airline, and then there is a 10 things you should know about airline selections as well, which is a free ebook. Okay? So this is how you get on it. You can get onto our YouTube channel as well, and this is how you can get lots of free stuff, okay? The idea for us is that, so this is, well, I don't know, it doesn't look great like this, but this is how the BA course looks like from a graphical point of view. And the idea is that you come to us gradually and learn as much as possible and get comfortable. And once you get comfortable, then, you know, we're here with the rest of our solutions for when the time is right. You can download the app. You can do it now if you I don't know if you can access the QR code, but otherwise you just look for airline selections or airline selection program in the App Store and you will get it there. And you can get the courses the free courses are there. The other ones you have to, anything you want to buy, you have to do it through the website. Okay, we've removed our products from the App Store because it was a nightmare getting it done and with the payments through Apple. So it's all done through the website. Okay, we also have, is there anyone from an ATO here in the room? No, okay, so I'm not going to go much further. We've got a second company that does psychometric assessments. And so our whole credo, our whole ethos is around making recruitment ethical for aspiring pilots. So when you enter a flight school, it's important that the flight school evaluates your ability so you don't enter a flight school with insufficient skills. That could be a real nightmare for you and your family, and also, in fact, a nightmare for the school. So we provide them with these solutions to be able to evaluate candidates as well. And we provide training for candidates before they do the assessment as well. So it always has to be training before evaluation. Okay? But historically, selections were just evaluation, no training. Good. We have a WhatsApp group as well, if you want. But for the most of you, I will recommend you come on Discord. That's free. I'm very active there myself. So if you want to come and join the discussion, we have channels for every airline that recruits at the moment. We've got one on BA. We've got the general channel. So you can find this, and we'll give you the QR code on the stand. You've got it anyway on your little leaflets, I think. And that's about it. Come and see us. And now, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy. Yes?
Next flight.
I do, actually. I do. It's been 3 years now. Yeah, yesterday I flew from Nice on a BA plane, and it's the first time I got into one in 12 years. It was really emotional getting back to Terminal 5 for me. So yeah, I do miss it, but the challenges of this job, it's like missing the good times of a situation. You tend to forget the other ones, but I don't miss the night flights. I don't miss all the waiting around at the hotels and all of that. That's kind of tough in a pilot's life. Honestly, it's tough. But what I miss the most is discovering the crew, the pre-flight. That's never the same. Getting this big plane out, and doing a good job of it. I miss that a lot. Yeah. And flying over Greenland as well. Do you enjoy this talk? Do you learn something? Yeah? Good. Well, I'm glad. Any question? Now's the time. Otherwise, I guess there's going to be a lot of people at the stand now. So please, if you've got any question, now's the time. No? Okay. Well, it was a pleasure to see you. Bye.